Hey, time for a long weekend update on my Storm Eagle project. Sorry that there wasn't an update last week. I ended up going away, having a little bit of a break, but back into it this weekend and trying to patch up the deal with the wings and the engine assembly. So what my plan originally was, as I have said, was to try and magnetize the engines and wings. Didn't really work out, not enough stability. So brass rods was my next trick that I was going to try. So I went into the hobby store this morning, picked up a length of brass rod, which I just used my Dremel to cut down, and cut that into a couple of lengths just to see how that would fit. And what I've done here is you can see that this is put into the engine assembly. I haven't glued this in there yet, I was just test fitting. So yes, I'd originally drilled some holes in here to try magnets, didn't work, so I had to putty all of that up, get that all cleaned up and resurfaced, ready to go. So I got my my drill bit, just very carefully drilled into here. The resin's quite soft and it wasn't fully compressed, so I had a bit of an accident and the drill ended up going right through the other side, even though the actual hole itself was only sort of meant to go, halfway through. But it had a lot of air in it, wasn't fully compressed, so the drill went through. No big deal. I just grabbed some milli-putt and I'm just puttying that up, and I'll clean that up once that's all hardened up. No problems. So I just marked with a Sharpie the proper length that it should be at, so that gets put in there. And what I did was just on the corresponding side on the engine, you can see I've still got a little bit of patching up to do on here. Just drilled another hole in here, and I'll show you how I lined those things up as well. So taking the two slots and just wiggling that together, it fits together quite nicely, and it's still got a bit of friction there, so I figure once I get a second one in, excuse me, my words stop working, then it should be fairly solid, and I'll be able to test to see if the whole wing assembly will stay in there without having to be adjusted with extras or anything. So okay, so now that I've done one, trying to get the second one lined up, it's sort of how you're going to do it, because you could end up with a great big hole and things not lining up with the first one, all kinds of problems. So what I've done is I just drilled a second hole, just a very small one, into here where I want the pin to be, and I just put a little bit of straightened out paper clip just so it sits in there nice and straight and solid. So the deal was, once I had this in and lined up and ready, I could press this all together, and the paper clip would press in to where it's going to line up on the fuselage. And so I just applied pressure, give it a little bit of a wiggle just so that it would leave an indentation. So once I pulled that apart, there was just a little indentation in the resin, and I was able to get my pin vise and just put a little hole in there as well, so that would match up, so I have a starting point for the next side. So that's just a nice easy way to make sure everything is lined up correctly, and I'll do the same thing on the second side. As far as the wings and engine assemblies and all of that go, I've got the second wing all set up here and painted. This part is not glued to the engine yet because I'm still going to be test fitting, and obviously it's going to make it a little trickier if everything's all attached. So we've got a little thrusters, which can move up and down, and we've got our little weapon slots there. I've just base coated the las cannons so far, and that just slots in there, magnetized, and then this is going to attach. Did I just attach the wrong one? That would be like me. That will attach like that. So this side is going to be pinned into here as well. So yeah, making a bit of progress. Just adding some colour to the mix. Just using some Mordian blue, just to get the base coat. Start to get a feel of how it's all going to look together. So both engines, wings, that sort of set up. With the colouring for this, I've just done a base coat of tin bits on the main engine block, and then I've gone over with a dry brush of the metallic, and just leaving it sort of grubby near the end where the dirt and grime and soot and all the rest of that sort of burn off is going to be. Then I just went over on the edge a little bit on with some black, just to show the wear and tear and things like that. The intakes I've done the same as on the thrusters, so it's basically just a little bit of bronze and just some metallic silver there. Pick out the detail. And then this will get another detail coat once it's all together. I'll probably pick out these pipes in more of a bronze, just these little pipe details, pick those all out. But yeah, we're making some progress there after an initial hiccup of not being able to get the magnets to work. But hopefully it's all going to come together. If it's still not secure after sort of this sort of treatment, then I'm probably just going to glue it together. I would like the wings engines to be removable just for storage purposes. And if things get knocked, then you're going to less likely to have things break. It'll just kind of wiggle. So that's the plan, and it's coming together quite nicely. I'm also working on a little narrative campaign for once this thing is finished up, so I'll be able to include it in some games and things like that. So getting there. I did have to do some more work on the fuselage as I've been going, because seams have been popping and coming apart, and just sanded back some of the base coat back, because I'm going to have to put the landing gear on there and that sort of thing, so that's also being worked on. The canards are just about ready to be test fitting. The ailerons, that sort of thing. The hatch. Which is going to be painted up. And I would like to keep see if I can get some spare Storm Raven parts so that I can turn this into a turret, but I'll worry about that a little bit later. But yeah, just getting some of the details and stuff, getting it prepped and ready, all the extra parts. So going through a lot of base coat paint essentially, but that's alright. Yeah, so it's coming together and starting to see the structure come together. It's making me forget all the woes I had getting the fuselage straightened out and sorted out. So I'm really hoping that in the finish it's going to turn out looking good. I've been a little worried given how much hassle there has been trying to get it looking straight and even. But hopefully the finished product will look good. I'm feeling a little bit more hopeful about that now. So there we go. I'm going to keep going with this weekend and try and get the engines and wings assembled and attached, and get onto the landing gear and that sort of thing. So yeah, looking good, feeling good, pretty happy with how it's going so far. So stay tuned. I should hopefully have another update soon. Take it easy. Okay, here we go with another update for the weekend, long weekend. As you can see, the wings and engines are on. Hooray. I will confess to feeling a little bit like an amateur. Obviously I am an amateur, but a not very good amateur right now with how this is going together. The short of it is that it doesn't fit very well and it's gappy as all heck. And I think it's largely to do with the casting of the model. Needs a lot of work to have everything fit squarely and securely and all of that. So I'll swing this around so you can see what I'm talking about. If you look there, you can see large gap there, and also on this side underneath. Obviously it's pretty noticeable. Top, not so much. So pointing out those flaws first, because that's just the way it's turned out. I think that even without the brass rods in there, it would still not fit correctly. It would require a lot of work with the hairdryer to heat these bits up. There may be some sort of clearance issues somewhere, because when things are butted up together, the shape doesn't feel right. Anyway, it is what it is. If I was just to glue all of this together, I would probably still use the brass pins anyway for extra strength, but I would be able to fill in the gaps using some styrene or some milliput or something. Fill up the gaps, have it looking, cleaner. Is it that the way I've sort of got it working? I want the wings to be removable, so that's not really an option at this point. The only thing I could do maybe would be to leave the engines intact and have the wing section from here, this plate, just have that removable. Again, that's something that's fairly thin in here where it attaches, and so I don't see how I can get a sort of mechanism for that. So that's that. Little bit of a downer how it's kind of looking. I really wanted it to be a little bit more clean, a little bit more professional looking, but it's just not how it's turned out. So anyway, I'm going to pull this apart so you can see. Be careful with this. I don't want it too loose, so it doesn't come out when you don't want it to. I'm still debating on whether to put 2 or 3 rods on this one. I think 2 is working fine. So yeah, we've got the brass rods there, and I've sort of thickened them up a little bit, just to add a bit of friction. So they go in quite a long ways into the engine. They sort of go halfway through the engine. So that's in there, that's stable. And the holes here. This middle one required a little bit of wiggle room, because getting everything to line up was a bit of a nuisance, because it has to line up exactly, and again, those tolerances aren't fantastic. But anyhow, I've also put a little brass rod in the back here, and that just goes into a small hole I've put in the engine there, and that just helps clip that in a bit more securely. So that just slots in, and that should be good for play, good for tabletop, that sort of thing. Give it a good shake, they're not going anywhere. From the top down, part of that's not going to be quite so bad because you have these panels that are going to go on there, like so, and that's going to sort of cover the worst of that from that angle, and can't see it so much from underneath. What I think I'm going to do, now that I'm looking at it, I think I'm going to get some styrene, some plastic styrene sheets, and I'm actually going to put a thin layer on the front to close that gap up, and I think that should make things look a little bit better. See, if I feel like this top part here, just where this braces up against the engine, I feel that that's causing some of the clearance issues. Like it's jutting up against there, and it's just not fitting smoothly. So anyway, just another stupid moment that I had yesterday when I was doing this. I had thickened the brass tubes up a little bit, and they got caught in here quite securely. So securely, in fact, that when I was pulling it out, the whole side came away. I was left holding the model, and the side had just completely unglued, detached, all those bad things. It was not a lot of fun, I gotta say. Few little issues still. The front section is, sorry, let me just put that. Front section is gappy as all heck. I'm not really sure what I can do at this stage to fix that up. Everything's all together. Just lots of gaps and things going on there. Sorry if this is out of camera. I'm actually just doing I have a new setup. I've moved my desk around and try and get a little bit more natural light. So yeah, just feeling like a bit of a bumbling idiot this weekend as far as all that has gone. I really am not thrilled with how it's looking with those gaps. So I think I will plug those up with styrene, and hopefully that will make things sit flush and look better, and consequently feel better. Not sure that there's anything I could have really done about that, just beyond a lot of extra prep work, but yeah, just nothing seemed to want to line up. Like the whole thing seems to be warped. Like these don't line up. Sorry. These crossbars don't really line up as they should. But yeah, it's a learning experience. I'm going to try and tidy it up and fill those gaps and get some more work done, get some paint on it. And it's funny, you have these moments sometimes, and when you finally get to the end and everything has finally come together, it can be quite surprising and look a lot better than you initially think when you're in this kind of half done phase. However, it has been the longest piece of work to try and do. I've never spent this long actually futzing around trying to get a basic fit on a model, so yeah, is what it is. I'm still just hoping that we'll get this sorted out, and it's got a lot of weight. It's a really weighty piece. Just asides from the brass pins, these engines and wings are really weighty. So next step is landing gear. Just getting a few bits and pieces sorted out. Sorry, I'll move that. Just getting the landing gear bits and pieces sorted out. The way these are going to sit is at an angle, like so. It's not going to be straight up and down. It's going to be canted, like so. So I'm thinking I might have to use some of that brass rod to give it some strength, because it's going to have a whole lot of weight pressing down on. I'm just getting these ready for painting. I think if I put the brass rod in the base there, and then bend it with the pliers or something, and then have it going into that foot. I just have to work out the correct angles and things like that. So there's two of those, and then the foot. So cutting brass rods. I got some fairly thick stuff, and I used my Dremel with the cutting attachment to cut that, and that stuff heats up. Does it ever heat up? And I was using my little device to hold it, and it got so hot that it's melted the vice grips there, so I have to pick up another one. So that was another facepalm kind of moment there, because I haven't usually worked with that method of cutting them before, but it certainly beats trying to use heavy pliers and hacksaws and things like that. So yeah, just a string of facepalm moments this weekend. Yeah, I'll just put it down to one of the not quite so good weekends work, and move on and get that landing gear and stuff sorted out. But I'm glad that the engines are on, however imperfectly. I'm glad they're on. It's starting to look like an actual ship now, an actual build. So if I can get past this little frustrating part, again, I seem to be saying that a lot, but get past this and get it all painted up, will be good. So thank you for your patience. I'm just puzzling things over in my mind while I'm looking at this, trying to figure out how to make things look a bit better. We'll sort that out over the course of the week, and yeah, hopefully next weekend we'll have a little bit more progress and have things looking a little bit better. So there we go. Thanks for checking that out, and I'll catch you guys next time.